Okay, so we've discussed between the greens, and we're walking into part 2 now of basically what I'm going to call between the greens entries as a filter. All right, so this is an entry in and of itself. Don't forget that. And we talked about the steps of the entry in the first video. So now I'm going to talk about specifically the situation with the cable this morning, and maybe kind of put the pieces together to answer that question that we started off with in the first video, which is, should all trades begin with a 5-minute trend, and specifically, should they all begin with a between the green entry? Now, remember, between the greens means that there is a pullback. So, really, could this apply to momentum trades in a longer term time frame, anything longer than a 5-minute? It could. Could this apply to swing trades? It probably applies to trend following swing trades better than anything else. So keep that in mind. And this isn't something that I've necessarily done. It was just a really interesting little question that I think would make for an elegant filter if it was something that the trader felt gave them an edge. And in this case, the edge would be another filter in terms of short-term or near-term momentum. Okay, so looking at the daily cable, let's slide that into view here. What we have on the daily cable is a bearish directional bias. Now let's not remove all the other filters that we would normally consider. So let's remember, just because we're considering using the between the greens as part of our entry, maybe even sticking our toe in the water before we take on a full bore, full-sized position, let's not forget that we still want to respect directional bias and so forth, because that's going to dictate which time frames we'll consider for an entry and which direction we'll consider them for. That's a huge consideration. So, bearish directional bias, remember, directional bias is always taken from the daily time frame. We want to squeeze in basically the market memory, which would be 1 year. Look at the angle of the wave. Look at what grab candles have been dominating price action. We've got a succession of red grab candles. We've got a 4 to 6 o'clock angle of the 34 EMA wave. So this is, of course, a bearish directional bias. It's a downtrend, and it's a downtrend that really could have been shorted on any one of these touches along the zone between the 20-period simple moving average and the 34-period EMA low. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, gosh, that was pretty close. 4, that just recently happened, and these are all touches along resistance and their corrections higher within this downtrend. So the bearish directional bias is going to dictate these things. Okay, 1, if I am going to get short, I can do so on any time frame. Now, I may not want to get short on longer term time frames on directional biases that are not clearly bullish or bearish, but the cable, and another standout in terms of a clear trend, is the Swissy, the dollar Swissy. So the cable and the dollar Swissy are one of the exceptions, or two of the exceptions to the current chop we're seeing in a lot of the majors. Okay, so this one happens to have a very clear bearish directional bias. That means short entries across all time frames are valid, but long entries would be counter trend and therefore should be limited to shorter term intervals like the 5, 15, 30. Okay, I consider 60 kind of on the fence and really slightly longer term. So again, if I am trading counter the directional bias, I will focus on the 5, 15, 30. So if there is a buying opportunity, the only place I'm going to start to even consider it is 5, 15, 30. And the place I'm probably going to see it occur first, if we have that organization of bullish sentiment and bullish momentum turning into an uptrend, is going to be the 5-minute chart. So what I'm going to do in the next video is tie all this together, since now you understand that between the greens, how directional bias works to help filter in or out different types of entries and time frames. I'm going to talk specifically about a swing entry, a 60-minute swing, which would have been a trend following, but the 5-minute would have filtered out.